Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Deconstructing Leftists. On today's program, I want to deal with a video that I saw on a channel called The Dark Left. And in this particular video, the man was talking about this scheme he came up with. I mean, he's not serious about it, but he obviously thinks that if people had to live under a situation where we had two presidents, one of them is a Republican and one of them is a Democrat, and they both are in office at the same time, he believes that if those who voted for the Republican president had to live under Republican policies, that by the time the 4 years are up, that they would suddenly be done with that and they would want to vote for the Democrats. And he's saying that because he's claiming about the loss of all of these social safety nets and just, socialist programs and so forth that the Democrats have that the Republicans would not support. And he says, if we had to live under those things, then we would revert back to the Democrats in 4 years. Well, I can tell you without any question that I would never vote for the Democrats, and I told him so on his comments if my life depended on it, and that's no exaggeration. I wouldn't vote for the Democrats no matter what. And I would be very happy to be able to shake off the Democrat socialism and be able to live under Republican policies. So that would not be the case. At least it wouldn't be for me. Would it be for some other people? Maybe. But I also feel like there's a lot of people that would have to put up with a lot of the junk the Democrats put on people, and they wouldn't want to vote blue anymore. I think that you'd probably have some from both sides that would change sides once that 4 years are up. But he said one thing in particular that I want to address. And I thought that, this is an example of the difference between the way Republicans are and the way Democrats are. And it's one major reason why I would never be a Democrat. This is a quote from that video where he was trying to show why Republicans would change their mind if they had to live under Republican values. He said that the Republicans, the ones who had the red card that indicated they voted for the Republican president, would have no abortion access even if your mistress needs one. Well, that is appalling to me. And that's not a good reason whatsoever to support the Democrats. As a matter of fact, it's a reason not to support the Democrats. We don't think like that. That's the way the Democrats think. First of all, it's presumptuous to think that all of us have a mistress, that we all cheat on our wives. I've never cheated on my wife. I've been married over 40 years. I don't plan to cheat on my wife. I don't have a mistress. But even if I did have a mistress, even if I did cheat on my wife at some point, and even if we had this love child, suddenly I found out she was pregnant. The last thing I would want to do is have her kill my child, my little son or daughter, because, I'm not going to compound the mistake that I made in cheating on my wife. That's bad enough. But I am not going to want the woman that I had as a mistress to kill my child. I would care about my children. And I'm going to look at it like this. In the states where that abortion is legal, she could actually kill my child without my permission. I wouldn't have any say in it whatsoever. And so I absolutely want laws in place to protect my own children. And there's another side to this too. There's also a lot of situations where that a married man has an affair with a woman, and he ends up pressuring her to have an abortion that she does not want. And he puts it all on her like it's going to destroy his life. And, he'll just really put on the sob story about how it will destroy both of them if this affair gets out. And he will pressure her so much that she will wind up killing her own child, and she won't be happy about it. And I have seen that happen. I know of a situation personally where that happened, where that the woman did not want the abortion. She was having a fling with a married man, and he pressured her into it, and it pretty much destroyed her. She was having a nervous breakdown after this was over with, because her conscience bothered her so bad from it. So a lot of the time, the women don't want the abortions. It's the men who are trying to get out of having to take responsibility for their own child. But from my standpoint, I would just have to deal with the consequences. If I did something like that, I'm not going to compound the wrong that I'd already done by wanting my own child murdered. I would just have to deal with the consequences. I'd have to hope my wife forgave me for the affair, and if she didn't, I'd just have to deal with that. It might ruin my marriage, but I should have thought of that before I had the affair. And maybe she would forgive me. I don't know. It's hard to say. But at the same time, I would not want my child killed. I know I'd have to pay child support. I know I might even have to raise the child myself if the mother didn't want to. I understand there's a lot of consequences. It would not be an easy thing, but the idea of actually killing my own child, or wanting my mistress in this case to kill my child, no, I absolutely would not want that. So, but again, this is the way Democrats think. And they know this is a child. I don't care what they say, they know it. As a matter of fact, one of the few times I actually saw a woman admit that she knew it was a child was recently, where this woman flat out said she didn't care anything about the child. She only cares about the mother. And I did have one other woman admit the same thing before, that they've admitted it's a child. But whether they admit it's a child or not, we all know that it is. And, if you have any doubts about it, look at some of the videos, and they're all over the place, of babies on ultrasound screens. And look at the way that the woman that's pregnant goes in there to see the doctor, and he's showing her pictures of her baby, and he'll even say, "This is your baby," and then he'll show her the baby in the womb and its body, and sometimes a lot of time it'll be sucking its thumb, and it's a living human being with a separate body from the woman. I know the woman always says, bodily autonomy. Well, the child's got its own body. And if you ever look at the ultrasound, it's got its own body. And a lot of the time, abortions are done in some places all the way up to right up to the time of birth. And we know that's a human being, because we have had situations where babies, are premature in the 5th and 6th month of a pregnancy, and they are able to somehow survive. It takes a lot of effort, but they've survived even at that early place. So we're talking about human beings that are being murdered, all in the name of a woman's right to choose. I call it a justifiable homicide as far as the way that they're looking at it. But I would not support this kind of thing if it was me in that situation. But if you also want to see it, if you really want to investigate it and see it for yourself, there's actually a film called The Silent Screen. The first time I saw it, I was still about 18 years old, 19 years old, or something like that. And I was at a meeting of Right to Life, and they showed the video of it. But I've actually seen it recently. The last time I checked, it was still available on YouTube. It's called The Silent Screen. It seems like when I actually punched in The Silent Screen, that's the actual title, I couldn't get it to come up. But when I just put Silent Screen, I was able to bring up The Silent Screen. But that's how I found it. And I watched it fairly recently. But it shows an abortion being done on ultrasound. And you see a living human being literally being dismembered. A healthy baby having its legs pulled off, its arms. And then once the baby is out of the womb, they have to reassemble it in parts. It's not tissue. It is a human being, a baby with a head and body and arms and legs and feet and hands. It is a human being. And again, if you want to see it, if you really care, I think most people like being willingly ignorant. But if you really care at all to know, there is plenty of proof that we're talking about babies here. We're not talking about, we're talking about babies with a separate body, not the mothers. So, the ones that are supporting abortion and they're saying, well, a woman should have a right to choose. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. But at the same time, at least admit this is a baby. I don't care what the legal terminology is. They'll say, well, it's a fetus. Well, that's the terminology they use to feel better about themselves, but it is still a baby. And I know, say, well, you can make terminology anything you want. You can make claims about people all you want. Remember in this country at one time, African-American slaves were called 2/3 of a person, but were they really 2/3 of a person? Of course not. A fetus is a baby. I don't care what they say. And that's coming from just simple biology. And when it comes down to late-term abortions, there's actually a diagram, a medical diagram that I've seen online, and I looked it up, a diagram of late-term abortion. And it actually shows you the way they do it. And it shows a living baby being birthed, because they have to, at that point, when you start talking about the 7th and 8th month, they have to induce labor. A living, healthy baby is coming out of the womb, and they literally stick a tube in the back of its head and suck its brains out as it is being born. And as long as the baby is even got any part of it still inside the womb, any of it, even just its legs or feet, they can kill it. But if it gets all the way out, then they can't. Now, I can't even believe that we are allowed to do such things in a supposedly civilized country. But we are, and we've got people that defend this stuff. And in the late term, the baby's got to be born anyway. So the idea of murdering it on the way out of the womb, there's no reason for that to ever happen. Even in cases where the woman's life is in danger, at that point, they could do a C-section and the baby could be saved. There's no excuse in the late term to do such a thing. But nevertheless, again, in a supposedly civilized country, this is taking place. But I don't support this. Now, another thing that a lot of the left says, and I'm coming from a conservative viewpoint. I am a conservative, secular conservative, in the sense I was already a Republican before I was ever a Christian. I've always been a conservative politically, and I always would be, even if I was not a Christian. But I'm also a Christian. I'm also a Bible-believing Christian. And so I've noticed a lot of people claim that the Bible never says anything about abortion. Well, the thing is about it, it doesn't have to by name. All the Bible has to do is show us that God sees what we call a fetus as being a child. In his eyes, it's a child, because then the Bible's full of scriptures that say, like in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And Jesus himself affirms that murder is not acceptable. But the question is the fetus a baby as far as what God says, or is it simply a potential life, or a fetus or a zygote? Well, I can prove that God looks at them as a baby right from the very beginning. And as far as the way I look at it, the moment that a child is conceived, like go back to the situation that man brought up. Let's say I had a mistress and she gets pregnant. From the moment that she is pregnant, as far as I am concerned, I am now a father, because I've already got a baby. That baby just happens to be dwelling at that time in the mother. And the woman who has conceived is a mother already, because this is her child. And any good parent is going to protect their child, not kill their child. But anyway, I wanted to add that in. But now let's look at how God sees this. First of all, let's look at, is there a point in time where God suddenly sees a child as now magically human? Well, according to Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5, no. Before he even formed somebody, he already knew who they were. And so you can't go back any further than that. So let's look at what he said. I'm going to look at Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 and 5. He says, "Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee." So God, when he looked at him, from the very beginning, he knew who Jeremiah was. He says, "I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." So in that scripture, he's already saying that I already knew you in the womb. I knew you before I even formed you. I already knew who you were going to be, because God's all-knowing, and nobody is conceived by accident. Every single person that's ever conceived, it is in the plan of God. Even the ones that are conceived as a result of sin, there is a reason for them, and God still sees them as human and has a purpose for them to be born. But I'm going to show you a few more scriptures. Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. It says, "Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us." Notice it says, "Behold, a virgin shall be with child." It doesn't say shall be with fetus. It doesn't say with zygote. It doesn't say with potential life or anything like that, or tissue. It simply says child. Then we go over to Luke chapter 1 and verse 41. Luke chapter 1, verse 41. "And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost." Again, doesn't say fetus, doesn't say zygote, doesn't say potential life, doesn't say tissue. It says the babe. Then we go over, let's go back to the Old Testament then. Genesis chapter 25. Genesis chapter 25, and we'll be reading verses 21 through 24. It says, "And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her." Doesn't say fetuses. It says children struggled together within her. "And she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb." Again, children. So God sees the babes in the womb as children. He does not see them as merely a fetus. That's terminology that men have come up with, but God doesn't see them that way. And they say that Jesus never once spoke about abortion. He didn't have to. Now that we've established that God sees what we call a fetus as being a child, a human being, all we got to do is go over to Mark chapter 10, verse 19, and Jesus says, and this is in red letters, "Thou knowest the commandments. Do not commit adultery. Do not kill." Right there. So the only thing I need from the Bible to show me that abortion is wrong and that Jesus actually did come against it is where the scripture says, "Do not kill," because we've already established that God sees unborn babies, or what we call a fetus, as a fully human being. So to kill that human being is to commit murder. It's to kill. Well, that's all I wanted to say on our program today. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, I want to invite you to subscribe. Lord willing, I am planning on the next video to get back into part 2 of questions that Christians supposedly cannot answer. I answered 10 questions on the last video. I'm going to try to pick up and do there was like 8 more questions that were brought up. The video actually said 10 questions, but he actually gave 18. So I'm going to try to cover what I'm calling bonus questions on the next video. But I do invite you to subscribe to my channel, and I'm going to be covering anything from religion from a standpoint of an evangelical conservative to just conservative politics, all things to do with Republicans or MAGA or whatever on this channel. And so I certainly invite you to become a subscriber to my channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Well, that's all again I have on today's program. Lord willing, I'll be back very soon with another video.